My sister humiliated me for years for going to community college, now that I'm a successful best-selling author. She used my name to scam thousands from investors and blamed me. What I did next left her destroyed. I'm 24 years old. I'm a self-published writer, and I haven't spoken to my older sister in 3 years. The truth is, I thought I'd moved past it, that I'd closed that chapter. But like 2 months ago, everything exploded again, and now I'm here, trying to understand how we got to this point. I guess I should start from the beginning, when things were still normal between us, or at least they seemed that way. Alexandra and I were pretty close when we were kids. She's 2 years older than me, and we grew up doing everything together, you know, sharing clothes, secrets, those things sisters do. But everything started to change when she went off to college. She got into one of those prestigious universities, the kind that cost like a fortune per year and where all the students come from families with money or are super geniuses with full scholarships. My mom, Nancy, was so proud she basically wouldn't stop bragging about it to anyone who would listen. And look, I was proud of my sister too. Seriously. But something changed in her after that. When it was my turn to start college, things at home were financially complicated. My dad had lost his job, and I didn't want to get buried in student loans for decades, so I decided to go to community college first. My plan was to do the first 2 years there, save money, and then transfer to a 4-year university to finish my degree. It seemed logical to me, practical, like the smartest decision considering our situation. But Alexandra didn't see it that way at all. At first it was small comments, like subtle, but they still hurt. When her friends asked where I was studying, she would kind of change the subject quickly or say something vague like, "She's at a local school," without giving details. Once I heard her telling someone on the phone that I had decided to take it easy with my studies, as if I was lazy or something. I remember I confronted her, and she told me I was being dramatic, that it wasn't a big deal, that she was just trying not to make her friends feel bad about our family's situation. Her exact words, as if being in community college was some kind of family tragedy. Over time, the comments became more direct and crueler. She stopped inviting me to the parties she had with her university friends. When we went to family gatherings, she would talk and talk about her classes, her famous professors, the incredible opportunities she had, and if I mentioned anything about my school, you could literally see her face change, as if I was embarrassing her just by existing. My mom always tried to smooth things over, saying Alexandra was under a lot of stress, that it was normal for her to be a little different, that eventually everything would go back to how it was before. But it didn't go back to how it was before. In fact, it got much worse. 3 years ago, something happened that basically ended our relationship completely. Alexandra was throwing a party at the apartment she shared with some friends. Super nice place that her roommates could afford because their parents were doctors or lawyers or something. I didn't want to go. Honestly, because I already knew she didn't want me there. But my mom begged me. She told me we needed to stay united as a family. That deep down Alexandra missed me. All that typical mediator mom rhetoric, who just wants everyone to get along no matter how toxic the situation is. I went to the party and tried to stay out of the way. You know, smile, be nice, not cause problems. There were a ton of people I didn't know, all Alexandra's friends from her university, and everyone dressed like they came from a fashion show or something. I felt completely out of place in my jeans and a regular blouse. At one point, I was trying to leave the kitchen with a drink, and someone accidentally pushed me. The place was super crowded, and I ended up spilling my drink on one of Alexandra's friends. It was a total accident, like it could have happened to anyone, and I immediately started apologizing and looking for napkins to help her clean up. But then Alexandra arrived and, God, the expression on her face. She was furious, like I'd never seen her. She grabbed me by the arm, took me to the hallway, and started yelling at me in front of everyone. She told me I was clumsy, that I couldn't even do something as simple as hold a glass, that I was embarrassing her in front of her friends. And then she said something I'll never forget. She looked directly into my eyes and told me, "You're pathetic. You've always been pathetic. And I can't believe I let Mom convince me to invite you." And I just stood there, feeling my eyes fill with tears, while all her friends watched in silence or whispered among themselves. I left the party crying. I drove to my apartment and cried like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. I tried calling Alexandra the next day to talk, but she didn't answer. I sent her messages. Nothing. I tried looking her up on social media and realized she had blocked me on absolutely everything, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even LinkedIn. Weeks passed, then months, and every time I asked my mom about her, Nancy would tell me that Alexandra needed space, that she was busy with school, that I should give her time. I tried for almost 3 years to reach out to her in different ways. I would send her text messages even though I knew she probably ignored them. I bought her gifts for her birthday and Christmas that my mom delivered for me. Once I wrote her a long letter, apologizing for what happened at the party, even though honestly it was an accident, and explaining that I missed her and wanted to fix things. I never got a response. It was as if I had ceased to exist for her. During that time, I continued with my life as best I could. I transferred to a 4-year university, as I had planned, graduated, and started working on my true passion, which had always been writing. I published my first book independently like a year and a half ago. A romance novel that honestly I didn't expect to do that well, but it ended up selling much better than I imagined. I didn't become a millionaire or anything like that, but I make enough money from my books to live comfortably, pay all my bills, and even save a little. I published a second book like 8 months ago, and it also did super well. 2 months ago, my mom called me and told me that Alexandra was going to have a party for her birthday. She was turning 26, so 2 years older than me as always, and that she really wanted me to go. I told her I didn't think it was a good idea, that Alexandra clearly didn't want to see me considering we hadn't spoken in 3 years. But my mom insisted and insisted, and eventually, like the idiot I am, I gave in. Nancy even convinced me to buy a super expensive gift for Alexandra, like a designer bag that cost like $800, money I honestly should have kept. My mom told me this could be the gesture we needed to finally fix our relationship. I arrived at the party feeling nervous, with the gift bag in one hand and trying to convince myself that everything was going to be okay. The party was at a nice place, like a small event venue that probably cost a fortune to rent. I saw Alexandra on the other side of the room and she saw me too. For a second, I thought maybe she would come say hello, but she just looked at me with this cold expression and then kept talking to her friends as if I didn't exist. I waited like half an hour before approaching her. There was a group of people around her and I just wanted to give her the gift and leave, honestly. I walked up and said, "Happy birthday, Alexandra. I brought you this." She took the bag, didn't even thank me, opened it right there in front of everyone, pulled out the designer wallet I had bought, looked at it for a second, and then in this super condescending voice, she told me, "Oh, how nice that the community college trash can buy nice things now." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The people around fell into uncomfortable silence or laughed nervously. I just stood there, not knowing what to say. But then something happened that neither of us expected. A girl who was in the group, Rebecca, I think her name was, looked at me more closely and said, "Wait, you're Ella, right? You wrote that book I read last month, the one that's been on the independent bestseller lists." Oh my God, I loved that book. I finished it in 2 days, and that's where everything changed. Alexandra looked at me as if she was seeing me for the first time in years. Her expression went from contempt to confusion, to something I can only describe as calculating interest. She started asking me questions, like when I had written the book, how many I had sold, if I had a literary agent. I was so confused by the change in attitude that I could barely process what was happening. Suddenly, after 3 years of treating me like trash, Alexandra was being super friendly, introducing me to her friends as my younger sister, the talented writer, acting like we were best friends in the world. I left that party feeling more confused than ever. On one hand, a small part of me wanted to believe that maybe Alexandra had matured, that maybe we could finally fix our relationship. But another part of me, the part that had been ignored and humiliated for years, knew that something wasn't right about all this. During the next week, Alexandra wouldn't stop texting and calling me. She wanted to catch up. She wanted to know everything about my writing career. She wanted us to meet for coffee. I sent her a long message explaining that I needed time, that I felt uncomfortable with the way things had happened at her party, and that I couldn't just pretend the last 3 years hadn't existed, just because now she discovered I have some success. Alexandra responded saying she understood completely, that she had also been through a lot, that she had been immature before, but now she was different. She told me she would give me all the space I needed, but that she really wanted to rebuild our relationship as sisters. She sounded sincere, or at least that's what I thought at the time. 2 weeks later, I was in my apartment working on my next book, when someone knocked on the door. It was Alexandra. She had shown up unannounced, with 2 coffees in hand, and that smile she used to use when we were kids, and she wanted something from me. I told her it wasn't a good time, that I was working, but she insisted it would only be a few minutes. I let her in because, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, part of me still wanted to believe we could fix things. She sat in my living room and started asking questions. But they weren't normal questions from a sister trying to reconnect. They were specific questions about my career, how much exactly I made from my books, how the independent publishing process worked, if I had contacts in the publishing industry, what my long-term plan was, and then, just like that, she dropped the bomb. She told me she had been thinking and that it would be amazing if we worked together, that she had lots of ideas for stories and connections with people in marketing, and that we could create a kind of family business together. I told her I would think about it, but that I needed to focus on my own work for now. She seemed a little upset, but said she understood. She left after like an hour, and I was left with this weird feeling in my stomach that I couldn't explain. And the next week, I started receiving messages from people I knew vaguely. Family, friends, distant cousins, people from my hometown. Everyone was congratulating me on the new venture with my sister. They were asking me details about the business. Some even told me they wanted to invest. I had no idea what they were talking about. I sent Alexandra a message asking her what the hell was going on. She responded as if it was no big deal, saying she had casually mentioned to some people that we were considering working together, that she hadn't said anything definitive, that people had just gotten excited about the idea. I told her that wasn't true, that I had never agreed to work with her, and that she needed to stop telling people we had some kind of business together. Alexandra responded with a long message playing the victim, that she was just trying to include me in something, that after all these years of distance, she thought it would be nice to do something together. That? She couldn't believe I was reacting like this, when she only wanted what was best for both of us. That family should support each other, basically trying to make me feel guilty for setting boundaries. I responded telling her I wasn't going to continue with this conversation, that I needed her to respect my space and my work, and that if she couldn't do that, then we couldn't have any kind of relationship. Then I blocked her everywhere. Yes, I did exactly what she had done to me 3 years ago. But this time, I felt I was protecting my mental peace and my career. I thought that would be the end of it, that I could finally move on with my life without the constant drama. But like 3 weeks ago, I discovered something that left me completely frozen. One of my cousins, who's closer to Alexandra than to me, called me very upset. She told me that Alexandra had been collecting money from investors for this supposed business we were going to start together. She had told people they needed startup capital to launch an independent publishing house, that I was the creative face and she would be the business side. Some family members and family friends had invested thousands of dollars based on these promises. My cousin told me all this because people were starting to wonder when they were going to see results, when we would start publishing books under our publishing house. And Alexandra supposedly told them I was causing delays, that I was being difficult to work with. When my cousin asked me directly what was going on, I told her the truth, that there was no business, that I had never agreed to work with Alexandra, that it was all a lie. It turned out Alexandra had taken all that money from the investors and spent it on her lifestyle, expensive clothes, trips, dinners at fancy restaurants, basically using other people's money to maintain the image of success that mattered so much to her. And when people started demanding explanations, she blamed me, saying I had backed out of the business at the last minute, and that's why everything had failed. My mom started calling me like crazy, not to ask for my version of the story or to support me, but to beg me to help Alexandra. She told me my sister was in serious financial trouble, that people were threatening to sue her, that I was the only one who could fix this because I had money from my books. I asked my mom if she was seriously asking me to pay for Alexandra's lies and fraud, and she told me she was my sister, that family supports each other no matter what. I told my mom, "Look, I've been patient with you for years. I've understood that you're in a difficult position trying to keep the peace between your 2 daughters. But this is different. Alexandra not only treated me like trash for years, not only used me when it was convenient for her, but now she's committing fraud using my name and my reputation. And you, instead of holding her accountable for her actions, you come to ask me to rescue her. This has to stop." My mom started crying and saying I didn't understand how hard it was for her, that Alexandra had always been more complicated, that she needed more help. and I told her something I probably should have told her years ago. I told her that by constantly making excuses for Alexandra's behavior and pressuring me to be the most understanding, the most flexible, the one who always gave in, she had allowed Alexandra to become a manipulative person who believes she can do whatever she wants without consequences. I told her that if she kept pressuring me to fix Alexandra's mess, I was going to have to block her too, because I could no longer keep sacrificing my mental well-being to maintain this toxic family dynamic. Since then, my mom and I have talked very little. She still sends me messages from time to time trying to make me feel guilty, saying that someday I'm going to regret not being there for my sister, that family is the most important thing. But I stand firm. I'm not going to help Alexandra financially. I'm not going to lie for her. I'm not going to pretend we have some kind of business together. You know what's the saddest thing about all this? That for years, even after all the humiliations, I still wanted Alexandra's approval. I still wanted her to see me as someone worthy of her respect. And when I finally achieved something on my own, something that should have made me feel proud, regardless of anyone else's opinion, she tried to use it for her benefit. She didn't care about me as a person. She didn't care about our relationship as sisters. She only cared about what I could do for her. 2 days ago, Alexandra sent me an email, the only medium through which she can still contact me because I forgot to block my email. It was long, full of excuses and justifications. It said that everything had been a misunderstanding, that she never meant to hurt me, that she was just trying to create opportunities for both of us. That if I supported her in this, we could fix everything and finally be the sisters we used to be. I read the entire email, thought about it for a minute, and then deleted it without responding. Because the truth is, we were never really the sisters I thought we were. I was living in a fantasy where Alexandra loved me and valued me for who I am, but the reality is she only cares about me when I can offer her something she wants. Now I'm focused on my career, on my writing, on the people in my life who genuinely care about me without a hidden agenda. I just finished my 3rd book, and it's coming out next month. My editor told me there's a big publishing house that's interested in buying the rights to my series, or things are going well professionally, and I'm not going to let Alexandra or the family drama ruin that. Do I feel guilty sometimes? Yes. She's my sister. We grew up together. We share childhood memories. But I also know that keeping someone toxic in your life, even if they're family, is worse than being alone. I've learned that family love shouldn't be conditional. It shouldn't be based on how much success you have or what you can offer. And if someone only wants you in their life when it's convenient for them, then they don't really love you. They just want to use you. My mom asked me last week if in 10 years I'm going to be happy with the decision to distance myself from Alexandra. I told her I don't know, that maybe I will regret it, but that I'd rather live with that regret than continue allowing my sister to treat me like something disposable. Right now, I'm at peace with my decision, and that's enough for now, I guess.